welcome to Newspaper Review on Aloore Radio. We are transmitting from GSM Studio at the Ministry of Information and Orientation, Secretariat Agodi, Ibadan, Oyo State, Nigeria. My name is Olukemi Omotosho. I have with me two Nigerian dailies, The Punch and The Nation newspapers. And I would like to go to the front page of the Punch newspaper for the first headline. Says, Federal government denies subsidy return. More fuel stations shut. That can be found on page 19 with the rider that says NNPCL blames pockets of fuel queues on road delays. 25 refinery license idle over subsidy, says Kyari. Also on the front page of the Punch newspaper, slain lawyer, Lagos MBA welcomes death sentence for killer cop. The story can be found on pages 4 and 5 of the Punch newspaper. And I have domestic airlines demand jet fuel, import license and forex. That story can be found on page 20. And this story is a story of concern. It says concerns as commercial sex workers invade Lagos malls. Law men. Pages 4 and 5. And on page 8, I have this story, political story that says Ayedatiwa drops suit against Ondo Assembly, Akeredolu. Still on the Punch newspaper, Israeli-Hamas conflict. Federal government warns pilgrims against illegal trips. Lagos suspends airlifting as 110 pilgrims evacuated from Jordan. Death tolls nears 1,500. That story can be found on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. And on page 20, 4 consortia to fix dilapidated pipelines. That is coming from Kyari. And another one says that I have these pictorials of the killer cop that was sentenced to death for slaying a lawyer in Lagos. I'll quickly go to the front page of the Nation newspaper for the headlines. I have Tinubu, I am focused on lifting Nigeria to greatness. And the reader says SGF briefs president there is stability under APC government, says envoy. The story can be found on the front page and page 4 of the Nation newspaper. And on Israel lays siege to Gaza. That story can be found on pages 1 and 4 of the Nation newspaper. While I have no return to petrol subsidy, says NNPCL, with the rider that says we will export fuel next year. That story can be found on page 5. Still on the Nation newspaper, Christmas Day killer cop to die by hanging as 3,298 on death row. I beg your pardon. That is coming from page 5 of the Nation newspaper. And Keamo, airlines must pay compensation for flight delays. That is a good one coming from page 5. And on page 27, European Union observers reports created wrong impression, says Wike. And world economy incomplete without prosperous Africa. The writer says continent hosts first World Bank IMF meeting in 50 years. That story can be found on the front page and page 4 of the Nation newspaper. And on economy, banks in 400 billion naira recapitalization drive at stock market. This and many more I'll give to you as you listen to us. Please stay tuned. We'll go on a short break for to commence after this. Thank you.
In a fast-paced world, staying informed is more important than ever. From local events to global affairs, we've got you covered. Get ready to dive into the arts of the news. It's World News on we bring you everything from breaking news.
The president must know that this is a bad time for our nation. We must look for foreign support to save this nation.
World News, sport, music,
Girl, I just want me with you like guys.
and many more. To listen to our programs, follow us live on all our social media platforms on Facebook at Aloore Radio, Twitter and Instagram at Aloore Radio. You can also subscribe on our YouTube page on Aloore Radio. Make sure you click on the notification bell so you know when we are live. This is Aloore Radio, the voice of Oyo State.
You're welcome back to Newspaper Review on Aloore Radio. You can like and share on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Aloore Radio. On YouTube, it is Aloore Radio. And our website remains www.alooreradio.com. You can call in on 09039853731. 09039853731. The first story I'm going to take in details is taken from page 19 of the Punch newspaper. Federal government denies subsidy return. More fuel stations shut. The federal government on Monday denied reintroducing the subsidy on premium motor spirit, popularly called petrol, amid the closure of many filling stations nationwide due to various challenges in the downstream oil sector. It also said the pockets of queues observed by motorists in the petrol stations across the country stemmed from hiccups in product distribution from the south to the north, not a lack of supply. This came as the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited also declared on Monday that it would have gone bankrupt in June this year had it been the President, Bola Tinubu, did not halt subsidy on PMS in May. NNPCL also announced that Nigeria would become a net exporter of refined petroleum products by next year, going by efforts of revamp its refineries. Nigeria, through the NNPCL, currently imports PMS and other refined petroleum products consumed across the country, which has been ongoing for decades. If you're interested in that story, you can turn to page 19 of the Punch newspaper. Federal government denies subsidy return. More fuel stations shut. And coming on page 20, I have 4 consortia to fix dilapidated pipelines, NNPCL. The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited on Monday said 4 consortia would finance the rehabilitation of pipelines across the country based on build, operate, and transfer terms. Marketers have repeatedly complained about the dormancy of about 20 NNPCL depots, as they explained that this was due to the vandalization of pipelines that supplies products to these facilities nationwide. But in a post in its ex-former Twitter handle on Monday, the National Oil Company outlined 4 consortia that would finance the repairs of pipelines belonging to the NNPCL. The company said it adhered to the highest standards of transparency and global best practices in selecting the consortia, adding that the contracts which were advertised were awarded based on rigorous evaluation criteria and in line with industry norms. If you are interested in that story, you can turn to page 20 of the Punch newspaper. 4 consortia to fix dilapidated pipeline, NNPCL. And with that, I'll go to page 2 of the Punch newspaper. It says Israeli-Hamas conflicts. Federal government warns pilgrims against illegal trips. Lagos suspends airlifting. Amidst the ongoing bloody conflicts between the states of Israel and Hamas militant group, which has claimed hundreds of lives, the federal government has warned Nigerian pilgrims against making illegal and unauthorized trips while in the Holy Land. The Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Christian Pilgrims Commission, Reverend Yakub Pan, handed down the admonition as the Lagos State authorities suspended the planned airlifting of pilgrims in the state on Monday. Speaking at an orientation program for the intending pilgrims for the last batch of the Easter pilgrimage to Israel and Jordan, Pam said any pilgrim who engage in any illegal act will be deported. He said, and I quote, "The Commission would not hesitate to deport any pilgrim who plans to abscond during the pilgrimage," Pam warned. If you are interested in that story, you can turn to page 2 of the Punch newspaper. Israeli-Hamas conflict. Federal government warns pilgrims against illegal trips. Lagos suspends airlifting. And on the crime page, pages 4 and 5, I have the story. Slain lawyer. Lagos NBA welcomes death sentence for killer cop. A Lagos State High Court sitting at the Tafawa Balewa Square on Monday convicted and sentenced a suspended Assistant Superintendent of Police, Dramabi Vandi, who killed a Lagos lawyer, Bolanle Rahim, to death by hanging. Justice Ibironke Harrison sentenced him after finding him guilty of the murder of the pregnant lawyer. The judge held that the convict should be hung by the neck till he dies. Vandi, attached to the Ajiwe police station in Ajah, Lagos, shot Rahim while she was returning from an outing with her family members on December 25th, 2022. Meanwhile, the Nigeria Bar Association Lagos Island branch has expressed excitement over the verdict passed on the killer of its member. If you are interested in that story, you can turn to page 4 and 5 of the Punch newspaper. Slain lawyer. Lagos NBA welcomes death sentence for killer cops. And I have concerns as commercial sexual workers invade Lagos malls, lure men. Concerns are rising as young ladies suspected to be commercial sex workers now loiter around major shopping malls and eyebrow streets in Lagos to lure prospective customers. Punch Metro learns that the skimpily dressed ladies usually position themselves in strategic locations within the malls to lure men. The correspondent who visited such places as Ikeja City Mall, Festival Mall and Ellen Avenue observed that ladies suspected to be between the ages of 20 and 30 were lurking around the premises to woo prospective customers. One of the correspondents who visited ICM around 10 p.m. on Saturday was accosted by no fewer than 3 different young ladies in revealing and sexually enticing blouses. If you are interested in that troublesome story, you can turn to pages 4 and 5 of the Punch newspaper. Concerns as commercial sex workers invade Lagos malls, lure men. And coming from page 6, I have Lagos suspends planned mass burial for NSAS victims. The Lagos state government said it has suspended its planned mass burial of the 103 corpses recovered in the wake of the October 2020 NSAS protests. The Lagos State Commissioner for Information and Strategy, Mr. Gbenga Omotosho, told the Punch on Monday that the planned mass burial had been suspended following controversy generated by the announcement in July. In a leaked memo dated July 19, 2023, the state government had said it would conduct a mass burial for the 103 corpses it was gathered. This had raised dust among human rights campaigners and civil society organizations. A human rights organization, Amnesty International, and a group under the aegis of the coalition of NSAS protesters and supporters had demanded that the state government should suspend the planned mass burial. In addition to the suspension demand, Amnesty International had asked the government to also carry out transparent coroner inquests and autopsies on the 103 NSAS victims. If you are interested in that story, you can turn to page 6 of the Punch newspaper. Lagos suspends planned mass burial for NSAS victims. And on page 8, I have the story that says Ayedatiwa drops suit against Ondo Assembly Akeredolu. The Deputy Governor of Ondo State, Lucky Ayedatiwa, on Monday told the Federal High Court in Abuja he was withdrawing the lawsuit he filed to stop his impeachment by the Ondo State House of Assembly. Other defendants in the suit marked FHC/ABJ/CS 12494/2023 were the governors of Ondo State, the Speaker of the House of Assembly, the Chief Judge of Ondo State, the House of Assembly, the Inspector General of Police, the Department of State Services. At the Monday hearing, Ayedatiwa's lawyer, Mr. Ebolu Adegboruwa San, told the court the Deputy Governor wished to withdraw the suit following the intervention of the leadership of the All Progressive Congress in the matter. The San noted that the national chairman of the All Progressive Congress, Abdullahi Gadije, had set up a reconciliation committee on October 6 to mediate the dispute between some of the parties to the suit. If you are interested in that story, you can turn to page 8 of the Punch newspaper. Ayedatiwa drops suit against Ondo Assembly Akeredolu. And coming from page 6, education, I have also urged government to raise varsity funding. National President, Academic Staff Union of Universities, Professor Emmanuel Osodeke, and All Progressives Congress governorship candidate in Rivers State, Mr. Tony Cole, has called the Nigerian government to retain talent and increase the budgetary allocations of universities. Speaking to correspondents of Punch on the state of the country's education as Nigeria celebrates 63rd independence anniversary on October 1st, Osodeke maintained that only through the increased budgetary allocation to universities that the issue of free increments across campuses in the country will be solved or reduced. Recently, universities across the country have increased obligatory fees astronomically, which led to several protests by students whose parents earned less than 40,000 naira per month and claimed it would be difficult to afford the newly introduced huge fees. He said, and I quote, "The issue of fees increments is a major issue as many students will drop out of school. Most parents will not be able to afford their children's fees since the government says don't increase fees and universities are increasing fees. They should intervene as part of their palliatives because the vice chancellors are being pushed to the wall, so they have no choice but to increase fees." If you are interested in that story, you can turn to page 26 of the Punch newspaper. With that, I'll go to the Nation newspaper. I have the story coming from the front page. Tinubu says, "I am focused on lifting Nigeria to greatness." The president reaffirmed yesterday that he is not distracted from the task of putting Nigeria on the path of progress. According to him, taking the country to a higher pedestal is his major preoccupation. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu made these feelings known in a tweet on his X handle, posted along with his photographs during a meeting with Secretary to the Government of the Federation SGF George Akume. The meeting was held at the President's office in Aso Villa in Abuja. The tweet reads, and I quote, "All hands must be on deck in the great task of positioning our dear nation for progress." The president, it was learnt, held a meeting with the SGF on government business, and the SGF briefed him on the ministries, departments and agencies. The government has been working hard to provide a revival pill for economy as a result of petrol subsidy removal and unification of the naira-dollar exchange rate. Efforts are also ongoing to ensure the implementation of the agreements reached with labor leaders last week, which serves off these workers' strike threats. If you're interested in that story, you can turn to the front page and page 4 of the Nation newspaper for the rest of that story. Tinubu, I am focused on lifting Nigeria to greatness. And on Israel's war, Israel lays siege to Gaza. Israel's military orders a complete siege on the Gaza Strip yesterday, halting deliveries of food, fuel, and supplies to its 2.3 million people as it pounded the Hamas-ruled territory with waves of airstrikes in retaliation for the militants' bloody weekend incursions. The death tolls in the Gaza Strip rose to 560 yesterday. The health ministry in the Palestine enclave said. And if you're interested in that story, you can turn to the front page and page 4 of the Nation newspaper for the rest of that story. Israel lays siege to Gaza. And of course, coming from page I beg your pardon. Coming from page 3, I have it's kneel down for women under Tinubu, says First Lady. The First Lady, Senator Aloore Tinubu, has said the Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration will give more room for women to contribute to national development. Senator Tinubu said this while hosting the Minister of State for Police Affairs, Ajiya Iman Sulaiman Ibrahim, who led senior policewomen on a visit to her office at the State House yesterday in Abuja. The First Lady described the current administration as the beginning of a new dawn for Nigerian women. If you're interested in that story, you can turn to page 3 of the Nation newspaper. It's new dawn for women under Tinubu, says First Lady. And coming from page 28 of the Nation newspaper, I have Makinde inaugurates panel to review salary. Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde yesterday inaugurated an 11-man committee to review salary of workers, among other demands of the labor union. Following the directives of the national leaders of the unions after the removal of fuel subsidy, the committee is to be headed, by the Secretary to the State Government, SSG, Professor Olanike Adeyemo. Members are the Head of Service, Olubunmi Oni, Commissioners, Akinola Ojo, Finance, Adeniyi Adebisi, Establishment and Training, Abiodun Aikomo, Attorney General, Strict Justice, and the Special Advisor to Governor Makinde on Labour Matters, Adebayo Titilayo Sodo. Other members include Executive Assistant to Governor Makinde on Security, CP Sunday Odukoya, retired, Oyo State Chairman, Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, Comrade Kayode Martins, his Trade Union Congress, TUC counterpart, Comrade Bosun Olabiyi, Chairman, Public Service Joint Negotiating Council, Comrade Olanipekun Oluwaseun, and Director Establishment Matters of the Ministry of Establishment and Training, Mr. O. Ojelabi, as the Secretary. If you are interested in that story, you can turn to page 28 of the Nation newspaper. Makinde inaugurates panel to review salary. And the last story I'm going to take is still on page 28. It says, Obaseki sends revised budget to Assembly. Edo House of Assembly yesterday received the 2023 revised Edo budget forwarded to it by Governor Godwin Obaseki, requesting the House consideration and approval. The request is contained in a letter dated October 5 and signed by the Secretary to the State Government (SSG), Mr. Osarodium Ogie. And the letter said, and I quote, "I write as the instance of the Edo State Governor Godwin Obaseki to forward 30 copies of the year 2023 revised Edo State budget for consideration and approval of the House." For more of that story, you can turn to page 28 of the Nation newspaper. Obaseki sends reviewed budget to Assembly. And with that, we've come to the end of today's newspaper review on Aloore Radio. You can like and share on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Aloore Radio. On YouTube, it is at Aloore Radio. And on mobile store, you can download Aloore Radio. For advert placements enquiries, you can call in on 09039853731, 09039853731. Thank you for listening and do have a wonderful day. My name is Olukemi Omotosho.